Hey guys, this is the Sports Hub. I'm Connor O'Gara. Hard to believe there is only one regular season game for teams left in the Hub territory. I can't believe the season's gone by this fast. We have some teams that are going to be looking to get into the playoffs still. We have some teams that are going to be having big headliner games this weekend, teams that have already definitely clinched. We have a coach's corner with Wilcox-Hildreth coach Gabe Eberhardt, but before we get to any of that, we talk 3 stars. And the first kid we want to talk about, South Loop, Landon Fern. Has a big performance in that game. South Loop gets its first win of the year. Hasn't been the best year for that team, but Fern had a bunch of touchdowns in that one and had a 74-yard touchdown run. That's probably the main reason he gets in this program. 8-man football to get a 74-yard touchdown run. That's not an easy thing to do. It's an 80-yard field. Very impressive performance. And then the second kid we want to look at from Loomis is Levi Osp, a kid that did everything that the Wolves could have asked him to do, considering that Zach Clark has been banged up, Jack Crandall's been banged up. He had a bunch of touchdowns in that one and really stepped up in a game that they probably needed to win to get into the playoffs. They end the season with a rivalry game against Bertrand, but that win against Hitchcock County, that's really important for them to get. They did not want to have to go into that finale against Bertrand as a winner-go-home scenario. And then we talk about kids stepping up with big seniors injured, and that's exactly what Brady Holtmeyer did. The Kearney Catholic sophomore running back stepped up. First game without Nathan Howe, Bryce James still out with an injury, and Holtmeyer steps up, has his first 200-yard rushing game of his career, had 3 touchdowns for the Stars. And yes, that's a win against Minden. Competition's going to get tougher, definitely in this upcoming week against Holdridge and into the playoffs, but Holtmeyer stepped up in the biggest possible way. Dave Collin going to look to rely on him, going to look to rely on John Masker a lot. If they want to make a run, Holtmeyer's going to have to be the guy. Friday Night Rewind, I'm handing out props. These are 2 teams in the Hub territory that have earned definite recognition for the position that they put themselves in this final week of the season. The first team, Shelton. How about Shelton, a team that was sitting at 1-4, didn't have a lot of experience at all coming back on that team, but credit Mike Lowe for being able to right the ship and put them in a position now where they're playing in what is probably a win-or-go-home scenario for them. That's at Arapahoe. That's obviously a very tough game, but had to get 2 wins. Got wins against Axtell and got a win against Franklin to be able to put themselves in a position where, you know what, if they win this game against Arapahoe, they're going to be going to the playoffs. And considering what they had coming back and the fact that they moved up a class, that's a pretty impressive coaching job for Mike Lowe. And then you talk about impressive coaches. I mean, Brian Cargill's obviously not far from that conversation, and that's exactly the job that he's done at Cozad has been very impressive in the second half of the season. Yeah, they had the tough loss. First loss that he's ever had at Cozad was that loss at Kearney Catholic in the middle of the season, but all his team has done is win since then. Pretty impressive stuff to see that the way that they've beat some really good C1 teams, and they've had some tough road games. We talked about that win against Gothenburg earlier, and now Cozad's sitting in a position where it's number 5 right now, closing in on a district title here, and going into potentially another state playoff run. Don't be surprised if the Haymakers, especially with that defensive line, we talk about Henry and Fisher and what that guys have meant for that front line. And if those guys can continue to perform the way that they have been and keep getting pressure on quarterbacks and ball carriers, man, look out for Cozad. Haymakers looking to be dangerous again come playoff time. If you saw the World Herald rankings this week, you probably saw that Wilcox-Hildreth making the jump into the top 5 in 6-man football. Falcons have had a nice year, 6-1 under head coach Gabe Eberhardt. I got a chance to catch up with him in the coach's corner.
I think that, Silver Lake was the defending state champion. When you play the defending state champ, you got to bring your A game. And I think we realized that we've had some pretty successful games before that, but to play with the caliber of some of the best teams in the state, we're going to have to step it up a notch. And they've been doing a great job ever since that game. We've answered the bell pretty well, so we're hoping to keep that going. A lot of space to cover, so we're doing a better job of trying to tackle in space, and our guys have really answered the call pretty well this season doing that. Yep, I mean, Ivan's a pretty special player. He's shifty, and he's very tough to bring down for being, 5'7", 145, 50 pounds. He gets 3 or 4 guys wrapping him up, and he can break out of some crazy stuff. But up front, our offensive line is really making some easy holes for him to find where he's able to break some big runs. So I think just to get a first-round win in the playoffs, like you said, it's going to be pretty tough with a lot of teams. The 8 teams that make it are very good teams. There's not one team that's really a slouch team when only 8 teams make it. That we're just going to have to stay consistent with not turning the ball over and wrapping up, knowing our defensive responsibilities, blocking well on offense, and just making plays.
This is a two-part edition of what to watch for. The first part, we're going to talk about who's going to get in. Two teams that we talked about last week, Southern Valley and Broken Bow, both have win-or-go-home games this weekend. Southern Valley travels to Doniphan-Trumbull, the defending state champs. That's obviously going to be no picnic for the Eagles. Eagles, we talked about it before, they've kind of struggled in those games where they faced that upper echelon of competition, but man, you talk about a big game scenario. Eagles have nothing to lose, no pressure on them. And then Broken Bow, going to be making a 2-hour trip up north to Valentine. That's not an easy thing to do. It would be very easy to have a slow start in that one. Definitely not going to be just a gimme game for the Indians going into the regular season finale here. I just think this is a game that, you know what, if Josie Evans and that offense can get going, Broken Bow is a team that could have a whole lot of momentum going into the postseason. Very tough to get into that final 16 of C1. C1's been very good this year, but if they can get a nice win at Valentine, watch out, that's going to be a very tough first round matchup. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the two headliner games we have as regular season finales in the Hub territory. The first one, Amherst, looked really good last weekend against Ansley Litchfield in that second half. Amherst has its toughest test of the season. They host Burwell. Burwell, no slouch coming in, and definitely a top 10 team. A team that is going to push that Amherst offense, I think, a little bit more than they're used to. If Amherst has a tough time getting going early, look for them to do exactly what they did against Ansley Litchfield in the second half. That's rely on Trey Taubenheim, rely on Colton Burke, and then stretch the field with Braden Eckhout. It's not a bad formula, and if Amherst can be able to get past Burwell, they're going to be looking at a nice seed heading into the playoffs. And then the second team, man, look at Elwood, what it has coming in against Kennesaw. I would not want to face Kennesaw right now. Consider this. Kennesaw, 70 points per game. Yeah, 70 points per game in its last 6 games. Those have all been wins. They lost the opener to Exeter Mulligan and have won 6 straight since then. Kennesaw is a team that is going to basically run up the score all day, and it will not stop scoring. And Elwood, obviously a team that doesn't stop scoring. We talk about Zach Hackbart, Skylar Werger, and what those guys can do. You want to see points? Head to Elwood this weekend. I'm going to be there. You should be there. It's going to be a really good one. Definitely a lot of fireworks in that one. Probably worth noting that we have Thursday and Friday action this weekend. That's kind of going to be the plan throughout for the rest of the playoffs. We're excited to be providing all the coverage in the Hub territory. We're going to get out to Thursday games. We're going to get out to Friday games. Coaches, make sure you're sending all of those scores in to sports@kearneyhub.com. Next time I see you guys, it'll be playoff time. I'm excited, looking forward to it. Who gets in, who doesn't get in, all those questions will be answered this weekend. So for the Sports Hub, this has been Connor O'Gara. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.